Bueno, buenas noches. Otra reunión más del Club de Traductores Literarios de Buenos Aires. Una muy especial, ya enseguida se van a enterar por qué. Y para quienes no estuvieron nunca acá o quienes no se acuerdan, normalmente lo que solemos hacer nosotros es plantear un tema, plantear algún tipo de problema de naturaleza técnica, administrativa y discutirlo después de la exposición de nuestro invitado. Yo decía que esta era una reunión especial porque nunca la dedicamos a creación y a traducción propiamente dicha, y sí, aprovechando la visita de dos estupendos poetas irlandeses, vamos a hacer una lectura bilingüe y también vamos a poder conversar un poco entre todos, y es lo que se espera. En principio, recuerden, como digo siempre, que para hablar reciban el micrófono porque esto está siendo grabado y si no, la gente que lo vaya a ver después en video, en lugares bastante lejanos, no va a escuchar la parte de lo que digan ustedes si no tienen el micrófono. Así que sean pacientes y charlemos y discutamos ordenadamente. Les informo, antes de pasar al evento de hoy, la próxima actividad que está planeada para... Un segundito, creo que es el día 20, si no me equivoco, el 20 de octubre. Sí, el 20 de octubre, acá mismo, a la misma hora, a las 7, para empezar 7:15, tenemos una mesa que se llama La versión de los correctores, en donde lo que hicimos es convocar a dos correctores de estilo muy experimentados. Se trata de María José Rodríguez Murguiondo y Maximiliano Papandrea. María José Murguiondo, para que ustedes tengan una idea solamente de la dimensión de su trabajo, fue la encargada de traducir del castellano de España a un castellano neutro Harry Potter, todos los volúmenes de Harry Potter. O sea que ya tienen una idea de la dimensión del trabajo que ella hizo en Argentina. Además de haber hecho eso, ella también es la que está a cargo de la coordinación del Premio Planeta, y trabajó también, antes de trabajar para Planeta, con Santillana y con Sudamericana. Y Maximiliano Papandrea, que es el coordinador editorial de La Bestia Equilátera, la pequeña editorial que está publicando muy buenos libros, y además es el corrector de Eterna Cadencia, también otra muy buena editorial de las pequeñas. Juntos van a contarnos, de alguna manera, qué es lo que hacen los correctores de estilo con nuestro trabajo como traductores cuando llega a sus manos, y bueno, será una perfecta ocasión para verles la cara y saber quiénes son esos canallas. Bueno, luego de esto hay dos mesas más para el mes de octubre. Una mesa que queda por confirmar todavía, a pesar de que hicimos un primer anuncio, que todavía no está totalmente definida quién va a estar en ella. Y la segunda mesa del mes de octubre, que si no me equivoco es el 19, está a cargo de Silvia Simonetti, que es la traductora oficial del diario Clarín, que va a contar justamente en qué consiste ser un traductor de un diario. Ella no solamente se ocupa del diario Clarín, sino, por ejemplo, de la versión del New York Times en castellano que hace el diario Clarín también. Así que es un tipo de traducción diferente y, bueno, va a ser muy interesante. Por último, reconfirmo una vez más el doble simposio que tenemos en el mes de noviembre, primero en Buenos Aires, el 1 y 2 de noviembre, y para quienes puedan ir, el 5, 6 y 7 de noviembre en Bariloche, donde va a haber una cantidad de traductores no solamente de Argentina, sino también de España, de México, de Chile y probablemente de Brasil. Esos son todos los anuncios entonces para hacer. Recuerden ver el blog del Club de Traductores Literarios de Buenos Aires, al que se accede poniendo Club de Traductores en el Google. Somos la primera opción, en muchos sentidos somos la primera opción. Y entonces vamos a la noche de hoy. Hoy tenemos a dos poetas irlandeses que vinieron de visita a Buenos Aires. Realmente es bastante excepcional poder contar con ellos. Se trata de dos grandes poetas que tienen una muy dilatada trayectoria en su país, da la casualidad de que son marido y mujer, por eso llegaron juntos. Eiléan es, además de poeta, también profesora universitaria en Trinity College, donde trabaja como especialista en literatura del Renacimiento. Ella también ha sido traductora, básicamente de poesía del gaélico al castellano, del irlandés al castellano, habría que decir, del italiano del gaélico al inglés, del italiano al inglés y del rumano al inglés. Macdara Woods es autor de aproximadamente unos 16 libros. Juntos hicieron una revista que lleva por su número 70, que se llama Cypher, y la idea es tener una lectura bilingüe. Ellos van a leer en inglés, vamos a hacer 2 tandas de 2 poemas cada uno. Si alguien se queda con ganas de más, habrá más, y luego estará la posibilidad de que todos podamos charlar un poco. Quienes hablan inglés y quienes lo entienden, ya que no está prevista una traducción simultánea, les pedimos en todo caso que ayuden a aquellos que se manejan menos, como para poder de esa manera tener un diálogo más completo. Y la idea entonces es justamente que después discutamos y charlemos un poco. Para terminar, en el caso de Macdara la traducción es mía, en el caso de Eiléan la traducción es de Silvia Camerotto, que es traductora y aparte una muy buena poeta, y que en este mismo momento se está muriendo de nervios. Entonces, para relajarla hay que decir este tipo de cosas. Es una muy buena traductora y vamos a disfrutar muchísimo de sus versiones. Entonces, lo que hacemos ahora es comenzar justamente con una primera tanda a cargo de Macdara.
Will I read the Irish seed potatoes?
Yeah.
Well, shall I read the English first, or would you read the...
No, you read first.
Shall I make a few explanations about it?
If you want it.
This first poem is called Irish Seed Potatoes, and it's about inclusion and exclusion and emigration, which for hundreds of years was a prime fact of life in Ireland. It's set in Italy because I was living the year round in Italy, and my neighbour, I was an immigrant, and my neighbour was looking at me, and my sister-in-law came out and she brought 16, shall I want to translate?
No, ¿se va entendiendo hasta ahora? ¿Alguien necesita alguna explicación? Bueno.
So she brought 16 Irish seed potatoes from Ireland. And I planted my 16 potatoes, and they all grew except for one, which the badger ate. But my neighbour was planting his potatoes at the same time, and he looked at my potatoes and he said, "What are they?" And I said, "Those are potatoes, same as yours." He said, No, nothing foreign will grow in Umbria. So now there's just one reference at the end of it, perhaps, which I might make, which is to the wasting death of Gull MacMorna. Gull MacMorna was a member of the Fianna semi-mythical group of warriors in Ireland. He actually starved to death on the top of a high rock while his erstwhile companions were looking for him in order to kill him. But he starved to death. That's the end of the poem. So Irish seed potatoes. "They won't grow there," my neighbour said in April. "No foreign thing will ever grow in the soil of Umbria. The Roman tried, and we told him. And besides, it is too early hereabouts to think of planting seed potatoes. And furthermore, the moon is growing. No seed will take that is not planted in the shrinking moon." At the start of May, I pause a moment in the cool after thunder to admire their sharp green stalks flourishing beside the vines. I am thinking of Ireland and trying to return to a message from my father, begun when we came face to face in the Achill house of Heinrich Böll 12 months ago last March, begun and lost in moving on from there to Dublin, Moscow, here, carrying these pages round, repeating conversation with the past, trying to keep performance bright like putting sea light under glass. Until today, I find myself at last beside the corner of the tillage reading Thomas Kinsella's anthology, comforted by these few stalks and recognizing differences, somehow always exiled stranger to my own, as if I had not served my time, sheltering in the clefts of rocks on sodden hills where no sun shines, coughing in foggy mailboat mornings, laboring on foreign sights, and flying home at every chance, enough to be here now and trying to write a message for my wandering father in whatever language fits this and fits the journeying itself, the starving freight of coffin ships and the wasting death of Gull MacMorna.
Semillas de papa irlandesa. Ahí no van a crecer, dijo mi vecino en abril. Nada extranjero crecerá jamás en el suelo de Umbria. El romano trató y se lo advertimos. Además, es demasiado temprano por acá para pensar en plantar papas, y encima la luna está creciendo. Ninguna semilla va a prender si no se planta en cuarto menguante. A principios de mayo, descanso un momento al fresco después de la tormenta para admirar sus tallos de un verde intenso, floreciendo junto a las vides. Pienso en Irlanda y trato de volver a una carta a mi padre, comenzada cuando estuvimos cara a cara en la casa de Heinrich Böll en Achill 12 meses atrás, en el pasado marzo, comenzada y perdida al ir desde allí a Dublín, Moscú, aquí, llegando estas páginas por todas partes, repitiendo una conversación con el pasado, tratando de mantener brillante la actuación, como quien pone la lámpara bajo una lente. Ahora que me encuentro por fin al lado del rincón del huerto, leyendo la antología de Thomas Kinsella, reconfortado por esos pocos tallos y reconociendo diferencias, de algún modo siempre un extranjero exiliado de mí mismo, como si no hubiera cumplido mi condena, refugiándome en las grietas de las rocas, en las colinas mojadas donde no brilla el sol, tosiendo en las mañanas brumosas en embarcaciones a vapor, trabajando en lugares extranjeros y volando a casa cada vez que puedo, lo suficiente como para estar ahora aquí tratando de escribir una carta para mi padre errante en la lengua que cuadre con esto y con los viajes, la carga famélica de los barcos de inmigrantes y la desgastante muerte de Gull MacMorna.
Another one, yeah. Okay, just that December. This poem was, it's called That December. And it was written for a festschrift for the Irish poet Pearse Hutchinson on his 75th, I think 75th?
Must be.
75th birthday. I know we put it together, but I can't remember if it was 70 or 70, 75th birthday. And it's to do with a message I received from a brother-in-law of mine whose name was Redwan Abushweshe. He was a Libyan. I had two sisters. One sister married Redwan Abushweshe from Libya, and the other sister married another Redwan from Algeria. Redwan sent me a message from Libya talking about a man who had come up with a wonderful secret, a man he knew in Libya. And that's what the poem is about. That December. Am I too late, I asked, to be remade? Been too long there at the back of the grate, too many times reduced by flame. Today, a message from the clinkers of my past. North Africa by hand, the last day of the year. A man in Libya telling it over and over again. The sun behind the sun, behind the sun, behind the sun. If I go on saying this, he says, no one can take me from myself.
Aquel diciembre. Es demasiado tarde, pregunté, para rehacerme. Estuve demasiado tiempo ahí, detrás de las rejas, demasiadas veces controlado con llamas. Hoy un mensaje venido desde los errores de mi pasado, norte de África, hecho a mano el último día del año. Un hombre en Libia repitiéndolo una y otra vez. El sol detrás del sol, detrás del sol, detrás del sol. Si sigo diciendo eso, dice, nadie puede apartarme de mí mismo.
Thank you. I think it's our turn. All right.
We'll read two poems. The first one is called The Witch in the Wardrobe, and I don't think I know what it means, so I can't really explain it, except that it starts with the custom in Italy of bringing home branches of olives on Palm Sunday and hanging them up in the house. And that reminded me that in Ireland they brought home palm branches. They were called palm branches, but I think they were actually some kind of cypress. Okay. Nobody wants a translation at this stage. Okay. The Witch in the Wardrobe. And so she opened the plank door where the dry palm branches had always perched, balancing lightly, pegged over the architrave. She swam at once inside a fluent pantry, a grange of luxury. The silk scarves came flying at her face like a car wash, then brushed her cheeks and shoulders coolly down. The fur slid over her skin, oiled and ready, and a cashmere sleeve whispered, probing her ear, "We were here all along, like an engine idling, warm, gentle, and alert. What will you do now?" But when she closed her eyes to feel it closer, their swatch of sublime purples, intensely swooping and spinning, dived past her, cooing like pigeons, their prickling mauve inside her stretched eyelids. The bridge was gone, and beyond it, she could no longer see her body, its flesh without stain, its innocent skin. Okay. Sylvia will read.
La bruja en el guardarropas. Y entonces ella abrió la puerta con tableros, donde las ramas secas de las palmas siempre se posaron, balanceándose suavemente encima de las molduras. Se zambulló en un cuarto fluido, un cuartucho de lujo. Los chales de seda se volaban hacia su cara como en un lavadero de autos, luego enfriaban sus mejillas y hombros al flotarlos. Las pieles se deslizaban sobre su piel aceitada y lista, y la manga de cachemira susurraba rozándole el oído. Todos aquí somos como un motor regulando que está caliente, suave y alerta. ¿Qué haremos ahora? Pero cuando ella cerró sus ojos para sentirlo más cerca, sus telas de un púrpura sublime se abalanzaron en picada a su lado como palomas. Su malva irritante en sus pestañas alargadas. El puente había desaparecido y más allá de él no podía ver su propio cuerpo, su carne sin mácula, su piel inocente.
What's the next one you have? Yes.
Oh, it's the same.
The second poem that I will read is called Unlacking the Killer Instinct. It has this title partly because a critic once said it about me, and she did not intend it as a compliment. So I thought it was the silliest thing that had ever been said about me, so I preserved it. This is a poem about my father, about an incident in his youth when he was part of the resistance to Britain. It's about the war against the Black and Tans in the early 1920s. And I was reminded of this when I saw a picture of a hare but the hare was escaping. And I thought I could see in her eye how pleased she was. And I thought of how the joy of running like this. So it's called Unlacking the Killer Instinct. One hare absorbed, sitting still, right in the grassy middle of the track, I met when I fled up into the hills. That time my father was dying in a hospital. I see her suddenly again, borne back by the morning paper's prize photograph, two greyhounds tumbling over, absurdly gross, while the hare shoots off to the left, her bright eye full not only of speed and fear, but surely in the moment a glad power. Like my father's, running from a lorry load of soldiers in 1921, 19 years old, never such gladness, he said, cornering in the narrow road between high hedges in summer dusk. The hare, like him, should never have been coursed, but clever, she gets off. Another day, she'll fool the stupid dogs, double back on her own scent, downhill, and choose her time to spring away out of the frame, all while the pack is labouring up. The lorry was growling, and he was clever. He saw a house and risked an open kitchen door. The soldiers found 6 people in a country kitchen, one drying his face, dazed looking, the towel half covering his face. The lorry left, the people let him sleep there, he came out into a blissful dawn. Should he have chanced that door? If the sheltering house had been burned down, what good could all his bright running have done for those that harboured him? And I should not have run away, but I went back to the city, next morning washed in brown bog water, and I thought about the hare in her hour of ease.
A falta de instinto asesino, me encontré con una liebre absorta, quieta, sentada en medio de la huella cubierta de hierba, cuando corría a las colinas a la hora en que mi padre moría en un hospital. De pronto vuelvo a verla traída de regreso por la foto premiada del diario de la mañana. 2 galgos tropezando, absurdamente gordos, mientras la liebre corre hacia la izquierda, sus ojos brillantes llenos no solo de miedo y de velocidad, sino en el momento seguro de un jubiloso poder, como el de mi padre, al escapar de un camión con una carga de soldados en 1921, a los 19 años. Jamás tanta alegría, dijo, acorralado en el angosto camino entre los setos altos en el atardecer del verano. La liebre, como él, nunca debió haber sido perseguida, pero astuta se escapa. Otro día engañará a los estúpidos perros regresando sobre su mismo olor, colina abajo, y elegirá su momento para salirse del cuadro, todo mientras la jauría sube afanosamente. El camión gruñía y él estuvo astuto, vio una casa y se arriesgó a meterse por una puerta abierta. Los soldados encontraron 6 personas en una cocina de campo, una de ellas secándose la cara, confundida, la toalla cubriendo su cara a medias. El camión se fue. La gente lo dejó dormir ahí y al despertar salió a un dichoso amanecer. Tenía que entrar por esa puerta. Si hubieran incendiado ese refugio, ¿qué bien le habría significado toda su ida brillante a aquellos que lo albergaron? Y yo no debía haber huido, pero volví a la ciudad a la mañana siguiente, lavada en el agua marrón del pantano, y pensé en la liebre, en su hora de alivio.
Okay. Well, the next one is called Houdini's Receipt, which really could be the name of a song, a slip jig or whatever. I think it's a very hard work Houdini had to do escaping from problems that he set himself. And it struck me, if I were dropped into a box and was dropped to the bottom of the sea, and I had the good fortune to come to the top of the sea, the top of the surface in Donegal, where it would no doubt be raining, I might find my way to a house that I knew there. Houdini's Receipt. Loosening the chains is easy, even down in the dark. But then there's the canvas sack and the bolted metal box locked from the outside. And when you're through the box and the air is running out, there are still the fathoms of water and the surface ice. And when you break through that, you find it's been raining for weeks. At this point, those who know breathe full and deep, remarkable beneath the moon in the welcoming lean of the sea, and walk out of the waves across the curve of the beach to make for home, to make a fire in a hearth swept clean, ash outside in a galvanized bucket.
Receta de Houdini. Aflojar las cadenas es fácil, incluso abajo en lo oscuro, pero luego están la bolsa de lona y la caja de metal con cerrojos trabada desde afuera. Y cuando acabas con la caja y se termina el aire, todavía quedan las brazadas y el hielo de la superficie, y cuando lo atraviesas, descubres que estuvo lloviendo durante semanas. En esa instancia, los que saben respiran profundamente, recortados debajo de la luna, en la hospitalaria pendiente del mar, y salen de entre las olas, a través de la curva de la playa, encaminándose a la casa para encender un fuego en un hogar totalmente limpio, la ceniza afuera, en un balde galvanizado.
This next poem, does it have a number?
Yeah.
This next poem is about something that never happened. It's about the Irish poet, the very, very great Irish poet, Patrick Kavanagh, who died in 1967. And I have him, the title of this poem is Kavanagh in Umbria, and Kavanagh never was in Umbria. He was never in Umbria in his life. But I knew Kavanagh, and he was the same as my uncles who were farmers in County Meath. And when I'm in Umbria in November, and it's misty and foggy, the winter fogs are coming on, and I see the farmers going home on their tractors with sack across their shoulders, they sit exactly like Kavanagh sat, and they sit exactly like my uncle sat. And I see Kavanagh translated, but not translated, and I see him there in Umbria. So this is called Kavanagh in Umbria. I have seen him here in November, going home through the dark on the tractor, a piece of sacking thrown across his shoulders against the winter fog, hunched up between the unseeing olives and the leafless sticks of vines. Marvelously translated, but not translated at all from where he is. Broken fields, perishing calves, November haggard, and the mist where Genesis begins.
Kavanagh en Umbria. Lo he visto aquí en noviembre, cruzando la oscuridad para volver a casa, en el tractor, un pedazo de arpillera sobre los hombros, contra la nieve invernal, encorvado entre los olivos que no puede ver y las estacas sin hojas de las vides, maravillosamente traducido, pero en absoluto trasplantado de donde proviene. Campos pedregosos, terneros que mueren, el patio de noviembre y la bruma donde comienza el Génesis.
Oh, yeah, we start again? Okay. This one is called The Skirt. I think for much of my life I avoided writing about subjects which appeared to be too feminine. And then I just noticed that in recent years I have started writing about cloth. It isn't always cloth for clothes that women wear, though. This one is really a poem about my sister, who died 20 years ago. She played first violin in a London orchestra, and she was a very, very good musician. But when she was young, and for the first time, she had to carry a violin and walk downstairs wearing a long skirt. She couldn't do it because she was afraid she would fall and break the violin. And my grandfather suddenly said, "I know how to do that." And he showed her, he acted for her how he had seen his mother and his grandmother coming downstairs in a long skirt. So in the poem, it's a poem really about, behind everything is her death, but it's also about this incident when my grandfather showed her how to walk. The young girl standing at the head of the long staircase with her long full skirt of black lace embroidery, holds her precious fiddle, her long slim bow in her right hand. She has never, nobody alive in this town has ever seen a woman descending stairs with such a fullness of cloth managed or knows how it's done. Her grandfather sighs, puts aside his grave clothes, the spectacles, crossword, pencil, to show her how his mother, his grandmother, dressed a stairway, how one skilled hand rightly placed on the flowing, trailing herd jerked all smooth into a series. She starts to make her way down, and the risers behind her all flower in shiny blackness, glitter in gaps of lace, following her down along. And when she reaches the floor, it opens. She treads on down. The stairwell plunges away. Her feet still find the trail. She still holds the fiddle upright, the white flash of the bow fading.
La falda. La joven parada en lo alto de la larga escalera, con su pollera larga de encaje bordado, sostiene su hermoso violín, el arco delgado en la mano derecha. Ni ella ni nadie vivo en este pueblo vio jamás a una mujer bajar las escaleras con tanta elegancia, ni saber cómo hacerlo. Su abuelo suspira, deja de lado su ropa de entierro, los anteojos, el crucigrama, el lápiz, para mostrarle cómo su madre, la abuela de ella, vestía una escalera. Como una mano diestra bien colocada guía el ágil rebaño en el sendero y lo divide homogéneamente en partes. Ella comienza a descender y las contrahuellas de los peldaños florecen a su espalda en una brillante oscuridad. Resplandecen en las brechas del encaje, siguiéndola en su descenso, y cuando toca el suelo, comienza. Pisa la caja de la escalera que se hunde y desaparece. Sus pies aún encuentran el camino. Ella sigue sosteniendo el violín derecho. El blanco brillo del arco se desvanece.
The next one is The Burden of Cloth. Okay. This one is also about cloth, but in this case, the costumes that are worn in a theatre. It's a poem a little bit also about the Irish Church, the recent attempts by some people in the Church to force the others to consider the history, especially the history of interfering with children, which of course is not something that is confined to clergy, but which the clergy had refused to admit was had happened. But the real poem is it's really a poem about the burden of history and about how some people who are perhaps innocent, who are often innocent, have to carry the burden of the history of other people's crimes. And the metaphor is one about cloth. The burden of cloth. The one playing the cardinal is attended by troops of acolytes to carry the loaded train. The light pauses on the fine wristbands, on the stem glass held high, the tight lip, the sip and sniff that condemns. The director calls time. Everyone struggles out of the skirts. And still it is not clear which one is the star player. But they've gone, and the clothes are abandoned in piles, the nuns veiling, the calico painted with wild scenes, the lace all full of holes. The studio curtains are lined and patched at random to stifle sound, but a window falls open somewhere, and down they come, tumbling. There, like the ranged cumuli, they must wait looming until someone comes to carry them all away. But who can it be? And is it because of the colours, ghosts of burgundy, pale roses, that misted white, that he stands there shuddering like a flame, wedded to its candle, guarding a greyness at its core, waiting, which is why it seems so difficult at last to handle and stack the whole folded history balanced on two bone shoulders.
El peso de la tela. El que hace de cardenal es ayudado por tropas de acólitos a llevar la cola de la capa. La luz se detiene en los finos puños, en la copa sostenida en alto, los labios apretados, el sorbo y la aspiración condenatoria. El director pide un corte, todo el mundo se separa con dificultad de las faldas y todavía no está claro quién es el actor estrella, pero se fueron y las ropas quedan amontonadas en pilas, los pelos de las monjas, el calicó pintado con escenas atrevidas, el encaje lleno de agujeros, las cortinas del estudio forradas y rellenas al azar para apagar el ruido, pero una ventana se abre en algún lugar y caen rodando. Allí, como nubes alineadas, deben esperar acechando hasta que alguien venga y se la lleve. Pero ¿quién puede ser? Y es por los colores, fantasmas borgoña, rosas pálidos, ese blanco empañado, que él se queda ahí, temblando como una llama unida a su vela, protegiendo la grisura de su centro, esperando. Y es por eso que al final parece tan difícil manejar y apilar en equilibrio toda la historia doblada sobre dos hombros huesudos.
Bueno, vamos a hacer van a hacer un poema más cada uno y después comenzamos la conversación, si les parece.
Is it only one?
Yes, so that
No,
she chooses.
just we can start with only one.
Okay, right.
So choose one. The one you like best. Right.
This poem is called Ranelagh Road Revisited. Now, we live on the Ranelagh Road in Dublin, and we live at the top of a tall house. And we sleep up at the top of a tall house. And at night time, particularly in the summer when the windows are open, we can hear all the noises coming up from the street and the road. And it's a road it leads out of Dublin. It's in the centre, but it leads out. It's a road you take out of Dublin. And you hear all kinds of surprising things. You hear people going home from the pub, and you hear people making their way home from work, and you hear all kinds of things. And sometimes they're happy sounds, sometimes not. But this poem is about that kind of thing of hearing the sounds coming up, including one from 1990 when Ireland was doing reasonably well, we thought, in the World Cup. And you could hear everywhere in Dublin, you could hear ole, 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 ole. But there's also a young woman in the house next door to us, the house in Flats. And this young woman, she was in her 30s. She was just in her early 30s. And she suffered from cystic fibrosis. And all her life, she and her partner, they had, her bag was packed and waiting just inside the front door, so that when she got the call from England, she would be able to pick her bag up, go to the airport, fly to England for the necessary transplant. It never happened. And that's where the poem finishes. And there's also a horse in the poem. The horse, it's the most wonderful sound at night when it's, say, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. Just one horse with his metal shoes going up the road. It's a wonderful sound. And it always catches me by surprise. Every time I hear it, I'm surprised. So, Ranelagh Road Revisited. Again I heard the horse last week. Again it caught me by surprise, hoofbeats on the hard street. A space between the notes and then the fading into silence, the silences between the things that come to mind. A single summer voice one night in 1990, going home alone, Ole, 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 reaching over the rooftops and in through my window. This present Monday, there was almost nothing from the roof, no rattling in the attic, only the hazy separated blurs, almost a whisper all night of rain on the glass. On Tuesday night, the wind swept in and filled the space with hugeness. 3 times last night in the small hours, the horse went trotting up the road, hoofbeats on glass in the rain. I heard the summer voices underneath my window, young couples and late-night drinkers sitting on the steps, discoursing, devouring the eclipse, the rusty moon, the color of dried blood. We think the things we know will last forever. The young woman in the house next door to this has died today, aged 31.
De vuelta en Ranelagh Road. Otra vez oí al caballo la semana pasada. Nuevamente me tomaron por sorpresa los cascos sobre la calle dura. Un espacio entre las notas y luego el desvanecimiento en el silencio, los silencios entre las cosas que vienen a la memoria. Una única voz estival, una noche de 1990, volviendo solo a casa. Olé, 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 que llega hasta los tejados a través de mi ventana. Este lunes no había casi nada. Nada en el techo, ningún ruido en el desván, solo los manchones nebulosos y dispersos, casi un susurro toda la noche de la lluvia sobre el vidrio. El martes a la noche el viento entró rápidamente y llenó el espacio de inmensidad. 3 veces anoche a la madrugada, el caballo pasó trotando calle arriba, casco sobre el vidrio en la lluvia. Oí las voces estivales debajo de mi ventana, jóvenes parejas y bebedores trasnochados, sentados en los escalones, discurseando, devorándose el eclipse, la luna herrumbrada, el color de la sangre seca. Creemos que aquello que conocemos durará para siempre. La joven de la casa de al lado murió hoy a los 31 años.
I'll read one poem. It's called The Sister. Something which has influenced my writing life is that I had 3 aunts who were nuns, and my childhood was spent avoiding the suggestion that they would like me to be a nun too. And then I found when I started to write that I found myself writing about nuns without, they come into my poems without being invited. But sometimes I write directly about them. This is a poem I'm pleased with because it includes a nun, but it also includes my other obsession, which I had never got into a poem before. My other obsession is with trains. So in this poem, I managed to get a nun onto a train. The Sister, it's in 2 sections. How on earth did she manage that journey on her own? When she was a young woman, they had plenty to keep them busy. They were small, they felt queasy. They gripped a pillar in the shade and held on. And as for leaving home, still the trains have never changed. They thunder up the valleys, built for strapping fellows, flinging their big bundles easily onto high shelves, real men. She turned up at the station, small, her clothes once elegant, all black. Past the train window slid the suburbs, a fast river. She saw a white-haired man, waist-deep, ducking under and rising again, a cormorant. A lump of a lad handed her bag down to her. Lopsided, she walked as far as the convent door. They greeted her with a leathery kiss. They told her where to find her bed and the hour of dinner. They knew the silent meal would be no surprise, no more than the hard bread, tougher at every slice, nor the dead silence of night until the first train troubled the valley. She would know, lying there, Others were sitting up, working in pairs to finish the stitching, tacking the last of the lace. But the cold woke her, and a subtle mist as fine as gauze hung on the glass. In the freezing dawn, she dragged a web just as light across her skin, veiling herself for good, and she slept on.
La hermana. ¿Cómo demonios logró hacer sola esa travesía? Cuando era joven tenían mucho con que mantenerlos ocupados. Eran pequeños, se sentían mareados y se aferraban a un poste en la sombra y aguantaban. Y en cuanto a dejar la casa, sin embargo, los trenes nunca cambiaron. Truenan trepando los valles construidos para hombres robustos que arrojan sus grandes bolsos fácilmente hasta el portaequipajes. Hombres de verdad. Y ella apareció en la estación, pequeña, con ropa que una vez fue elegante, toda de negro. Por la ventana del tren pasaban los suburbios, un río rápido. Ella vio un hombre entrecano metido hasta la cintura, sumergiéndose y emergiendo. Un cormorán. 2. Un chico fornido le alcanzó su bolso. Caminó ladeada hasta la puerta del convento. La recibieron con un beso seco y duro y le dijeron dónde estaba su cama y la hora de la cena. Sabían que en la cena en silencio no sería ninguna sorpresa, no más que el pan duro, más duro cada rebanada, ni el silencio mortal de la noche hasta que el primer tren perturbara el valle. Ella sabía, acostada ahí, que otras permanecían despiertas, trabajando en parejas para terminar la costura, hilvanando lo último del encaje. Pero el frío la despertó y una sutil niebla delgada como la gasa flotaba en la ventana. En el helado amanecer tiró de un tejido igual de liviano, extendiéndolo sobre su cuerpo, cubriéndose para siempre, y siguió durmiendo.
Can I thank for the poets, can we thank Jorge for arranging this, Silvia and Jorge for the translations, and the Instituto Cervantes, and you for having us, please.
Bueno, ahora viene la parte donde después de 15 segundos de excitaciones, viene el momento en donde quien quiera decir algo puede hacerlo, preguntar, etcétera, etcétera. Así que se escuchan ofertas. Y recuerden esperar el micrófono porque si no Cristina Kirchner no puede ver la grabación de todo lo que acá está ocurriendo.
Translate about Cristina Kirchner.
Yeah.
I could hear the original. And also with Eiléan and with Sylvia.
Mm-hmm.
I could hear the original, and that surely is what translation is.
Yes.
Bueno, lo que propondría yo, si no hay más preguntas, en todo caso, es que la lectura de un poema más de cada uno y, bueno, eso en principio. Are you agree? One more poem?
One more.
Oh,
Sure.
Listo.
You may choose
Mine is
now.
young.
Shall we do it?
What are you, will you go first this time, or what poem have you got?
I've got the last poem I've written, the most recent one I've written. It was about the park. Yeah, the park I visited. This is a poem written last May and published in the Irish Times last May. Good God, I can't read through those glasses. This is age. You have to have special glasses for poetry. And there's a park across the road from where we live in Ranelagh, and it was the original Ranelagh Gardens. It was the great Georgian Ranelagh Gardens, and all the Ranelaghs in the world are called after that one. The Ranelagh here, that's called after our Ranelagh. The Ranelagh Gardens in London are called after our Ranelagh. The Ranelagh in Paris is called after our Ranelagh. We are the first Ranelagh.
But are you sure the Ranelagh in Ireland is not called after the Argentinian Ranelagh?
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. And in 1783, the first balloon ascent in Ireland took place in the Ranelagh Gardens across the road from where I live. And it's a park that I spend a lot of time just walking around and visiting and thinking about things, and it's become part of me. And I was there in May this year. I was looking around me and I saw, it suddenly, well, the poem says it. It's called In May, the Park and Me Revisited. The dropouts in the park are drinking Bud and FS. I read the bottle caps and pull off tags from cans among thin plastic tubes and telltale roaches. May green is all about, and the community of carp, the grey friars of the lake, are one with children and their watches, and all the levels in between, and I, with those delusive ghosts of loneliness and failure, all the empty spaces of the years left unredeemed, and all the missing people, myself among them, when suddenly being here at all amid the sad detritus of bottle caps and memories beneath my feet, it somehow all feels yet too beautiful to leave.
En mayo, el parque y yo vueltos a visitar. Los marginados en el parque beben Bud y Efes. Leo las tapitas de las botellas y les arranco las etiquetas a las latas entre tubos de plástico delgado y cucarachas delatoras. Mayo, el verde está por todos lados y la comunidad de las carpas, monjes franciscanos del lago, son uno con los niños y sus espectadores y todos los niveles entre ellos y yo, con esos espectros engañosos de la soledad y el fracaso, todos los espacios vacíos de los años, abandonados y redentos, y toda la gente extraviada, yo entre ellos, cuando de pronto, estando del todo aquí, entre los tristes detritus de tapas de botella y recuerdos debajo de mis pies, sin embargo, se siente todavía demasiado bello para irse.
I'm going to read a poem called The Polio Epidemic, and I'm glad to read it to an assembly of translators, because this poem, we have a translation course in Trinity where I teach a little bit, and this poem has been used as an exercise. It's been translated into Polish by people who said, we took out the angels, we don't know anything about angels, and by people who said, but no decent girl would be allowed to go to a swimming pool on her own, or people who said, you mean your father let you go out alone on a bicycle? So, it's a simple poem of a memory of the great polio epidemic which happened in Cork in 1956, when all of a sudden all children discovered that their parents had plenty of time to look after them. Whereas before that we were very free, we went everywhere. Our parents counted us at night, and that was it. No hurry at all in house or garden. The children were kept from the danger. The parents suddenly had more time to watch them, to keep them amused, to see they had plenty to read. The city lay empty, infected. There was no more ice cream. The baths were closed all summer. One day my father allowed me beyond the gate with a message to pass through a slit in a blank wall. I promised I would just cycle for 2 hours, not stop or talk, and I roamed the long roads, clear through city and suburbs, past new churches, past ridges of houses where strange children were kept indoors too. I sliced through miles of air, free as a plague angel descending on places the buses went, Commons Road, Friars Walk.
La epidemia de polio. No había agitación en la casa o el jardín. Los niños fueron mantenidos fuera de peligro. De repente los padres tenían más tiempo para cuidarlos, para entretenerlos, para encargarse de que tuvieran mucho para leer. La ciudad estaba vacía, infectada, Ya no había helado, los balnearios fueron cerrados durante el verano. Un día mi padre me dejó atravesar el portón, llevando un mensaje que debía pasar a través de la ranura de una pared blanca. Prometí que solo pedalearía durante 2 horas, que no me detendría ni hablaría, y deambulé por las largas calles a través de la ciudad y los suburbios. Pasé por iglesias nuevas, por filas de casas donde niños desconocidos también permanecían encerrados. Crucé camino por millas de aire, libre como un ángel de la plaga descendiendo en los lugares a los que iban los autobuses. Commons Road, Friars Walk.
Bueno, antes de terminar y agradecerles a todos la presencia, quería también agradecer la presencia de James Macdara, que acaba de llegar a la Argentina, es el nuevo embajador de Irlanda y creo que habla muy bien de un país que en uno de sus primeros actos públicos el embajador venga a una lectura de poesía.